The real dichotomy in America is not between left and right. It's between the powerful and the powerless. We have to rethink everything.
Agreed.
You start to realize like how fragile society actually can be when people start to think this way, where they can't tolerate different ideas.
First of all, no one has a monopoly on the truth. Americans are losing our capacity for critical thought.
I don't understand this thing where we have to all consume the content that we agree with.
You have to use the words and the phrases the way I don't, and if you don't, you need to shut up.
I think we've lost the flexibility of the mind.
A lot of stuff became much more problematic for people.
To be a candidate, the kind of candidate that I was, is to be under constant assault. There are people inside there to sabotage you. They have captured our government. The only way to override this is for us to wake up.
Oof. I don't mean to brag, but I manifested this because I have attacked you for 2 or 3 years in your DMs. And I'm so excited that you're finally here.
And I'm so humiliated I never read the DM.
Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you. Thank you.
What do you see people getting wrong about manifestation in 2024?
Well, I'm not total, this sort of manifestation craze.
Okay.
I don't think, first of all, I understand why people want to manifest. That's the first thing we have to ask ourselves. Why are so many people needing to manifest something that is for so many people, seemingly unattainable? That's number one. Why are people living with such a, and having to live in such a state of grasping? That's the first thing we have to ask ourselves as a society. In the 1970s, the average American couple could afford a home, and could afford a car, and could afford a yearly vacation, could afford for one parent to stay home if they wanted to, and could afford to send their kids to college. So I grew up at a time when there wasn't so much grasping to manifest something because things seemed to come easier. That's for where I stand, that's the first question. The secondly is there's a difference between using your mind to manifest something versus recognizing that the universe is already manifesting all the time. And that if your thoughts are aligned with the universal mind, much as you and I were talking about a few minutes ago, you weren't thinking about making money when you started your business. The article I read was, I was committed to this blog. I was going to do it. And you weren't even thinking about money. You were putting in abundance, so abundance naturally came back. That's the difference really between magic and miracles. Magic is where you use your mind to make something happen, and there's value in knowing how powerful our mind is. But the genuinely miraculous in life is the universe supports all living things. And when we are thinking in terms of how can I be the person that whatever your notion of God is, would have me be, doing the best thing I can do on the planet to be of service, everything else will take care of itself. To me, that's the highest, that's the mountaintop.
I was listening to this, it was like a clip that Jerry Seinfeld, of all people, was saying. And he was saying that basically in the 70s and 80s, people didn't think about, I got to do this to make money. They thought about what they wanted to do as an occupation, what they wanted to put out into the world, what they wanted to write, what they wanted to create, what business. And there wasn't that thing where I need to do this thing for money. And he said there was this weird period of time when people started thinking about the money first. And then a lot of stuff became much more problematic for people.
Well, first of all, I saw that clip as well.
You did? Okay,
so that's exactly what I'm talking about. And it's also true that at that time, because that's my generation too, people weren't needing to be so desperate about money. I mean, when I was in my 20s, it's like we didn't have money, but we didn't really have to. We were all living together in places, and we felt we would one day. So I'm not in any way judging younger people who feel a kind of, this grasping quality because they don't have it as easy as we did. Relatively easy. We didn't have anything, but you didn't have to. It was a different time. And yes, it has created attitudes of, well, to be honest, greed and you're missing out on the joy of life.
Have you ever read Morgan Housel's The Psychology of Money? Do you know the book I'm talking about?
No.
Well, he wrote this book also called Same as Ever, and he was talking about people from the generation you're describing. You kind of saw people in your vicinity, around you, in your neighborhood. The keeping up with the Joneses thing was kind of, you would see maybe somebody down the street that had a nicer house, but it wasn't so crazy.
No.
Now you see people with the phone. You see
Right.
all sorts of different things, and what he was saying is it creates this feeling where there's like an inferiority complex if you have less than somebody else, and it's more visible to us as a people. He said he thinks that creates a lot of problems.
Well, yes, but then let's also, once again, let's look at the larger economic picture. Back in those days that he's talking about, the average American could live on just one job.
Mhm.
And the average American salary, one salary could reasonably support a 4-person family. People had time. People had time to spend with their kids. People had time to talk to their neighbors. So it's both and. It's personal responsibility of realizing that we're accountable and so forth, and we shouldn't be greedy. But it's also for someone my age realizing, well, yeah, that was a much easier time too. I mean, think about that. When you have 70% of Americans who say that they live with economic anxiety on a chronic level, remember, you have at this point 46% of Americans who say that they regularly skip meals in order to pay their rent. So the time that he was talking about, the values were more fair and reasonable and loving because it was easier for people to be fair and reasonable and loving. So it's both and. In those days he's talking about, just think about that. Think about the fact that the average American, in that time it was the father usually, but doesn't matter. The idea of one parent could afford to stay home with the kids. The average American and one job and support the couple and 2 children. That is not the way it is anymore.
If there's someone listening that's feeling that anxiety, maybe they're feeling stressed about money or travel or whatever it is, how would you sort of guide them to wake up in the morning? They open their eyes. What's the first thing you would tell them to do?
There is no religious or spiritual path that I've ever read about that does not emphasize the power of the morning. So too many Americans, we wake up in the morning, you go directly to Twitter, you go directly to Instagram, TikTok, your email, the news. Your mind is most open to new awareness the moment you wake up. If you say, okay, social media and news, take me, you are literally giving over your nervous system, giving over your brain, giving over, saying, just eat me alive. 5 minutes even, whatever. If you're a person of prayer, if you're a person of meditation, if you're a person of mindfulness, a person of reflection, even 5 minutes. Take care of your nervous system. Align yourself, whether you see it as nature, whether you see it as God, whether it doesn't matter. You can get there through religious, spiritual, secular. It doesn't matter. But align yourself with something higher than this assault, this chaotic assault that's just eating at us today. Nobody can be their best. You can't. Our nervous systems are under attack. And mornings are very important, so it's significant now when you ask for the morning. Now, for me, in terms of my work and the things I believe in, give your life to the God of your understanding today. Give your life to love today. Give your life, first of all, blast everybody that you know you're going to meet. Blast them with love before you get there. Blast everybody you know you're going to meet with love. Blast everybody you don't even know you're going to meet. And that takes some work. Because that will probably mean some people you don't like as well as the people you do like. Blast your employer, blast your employees, blast any colleagues. I mean, it takes some time. That's how powerful your mind is. And align yourself with, I wish to be the person I'm capable of being today in order to be of service to the healing of the world. You align yourself with those kinds of thoughts in the morning, you're going to have a different day.
How important is forgiveness in what you practice?
Everything. It is everything, because where there's love, that miraculous flow of the universe happens naturally. Just like, once again, when we talked about it, I love this blog, I'm going to do this blog, all that. It just, things unfold naturally. Holding a grievance is deflecting the miracles that might otherwise occur. The universe is like an opportunity creating machine, new beginnings. The universe is always ready. And anytime we have a loveless thought or a loveless action, It's like a car that's taken the wrong road. The GPS will automatically recalibrate. But if you're bringing the stuff from the past into the present, it can't happen. If you go into the day carrying anger, carrying resentment, carrying grievances, you're blocking opportunities right and left on subconscious levels.
You know, for what we do publicly, obviously we put ourselves and our life out there on a platform for the world to judge. Sometimes the judgment's good, sometimes bad. But one thing that I've been very forthright in saying for years now is that it could be a tool or it can really be a deterrent. And I wonder your take on, you know, the general temperature of the online community and people fighting online. If you're an individual that's doing that and finding yourself angered or triggered or upset and then arguing in comment sections, what would you tell that individual to maybe find a different path or maybe live in a more productive way?
There's an emotional barbarism that has set into our country. Hate, meanness, no mercy, no giving people the benefit of the doubt. And we're all addicted. And everybody kind of knows this now. We're seeing what it's doing. I mean, obviously the internet has some very wonderful opportunities and possibilities with it as well. It all has to do with what purpose we use it for. But I think the meanness online, the mean-spiritedness online, as someone who's kind of has been at the effect of a lot of that, the bullying of anybody who has the audacity to disagree with you, I think it's terrible.
How can we as a society try to make it better? What are the tips that you would give us collectively?
You know, this society has so swerved off course.
Yeah.
It's not like there are 5 easy steps.
Right. Energetically, it feels out of alignment.
I think you begin with the kinds of things you and I have already talked about, which is in your own life, your own lifestyle. It has to do with your food. It has to do with your exercise. It has to do with the quality of your relationships. It has to do with your spiritual practice or mindfulness or whatever you do. And then it has to do with taking responsibility for the fact that if we're going to turn this ship around, then each and every one of us has to take responsibility for our part. Whatever your business is, let it be an instrument of all that is good. Whatever your project is, whatever your talent is, use it for something and ask yourself, is this what I was born to do? If you ask someone deep in your heart, what is it you really want to do with your life? Nobody's going to say be a bank robber. Everybody really wants to be creating something great. Everybody really wants to be part of something great. And so there's taking personal accountability for, are you right now? We need an ethical revolution in this society. People aren't thinking in terms of what is good. Is that the good thing to do? Is it the honest thing to do? Does it have character? Does it have ethics? I mean, we've just lost the conversations around values. And I know you have children. We can't afford for these little ones to be raised in a society where what does it mean to be a good person is not the conversation.
Well, I'll tell you this, like as a parent, if I catch my children spending a decent amount of their time online arguing with strangers and insulting strangers, that's a moment as a parent where I'm going to put my step in and say, hey,
well, also,
that's maybe not the most productive way to use your time.
No, absolutely. And I know, I would assume, because you have little ones, you told me, you're going to be working on preparing the ground so that you're going to be conscious and aware. I mean, that's one thing. There is a lot of conscious parenting. I mean, conscious parenting is a conversation now, and I'm sure you're involved in it. And I'm sure, there's so many books on it and stuff like that. These are the questions people are asking, and that's the good thing. So that your children, because you're already into this conversation, when they're so young, you will be preparing the ground and thinking about these things long before that day would even arrive.
Well, I say this, I actually, and this is maybe strange to say as people that make a living creating things that later go out on the internet. But I think because of that, there's maybe an understanding of these platforms more so than the average person. And let me elaborate. If you were to look at the average person and pull up any of their social media accounts, you would get a reflection of what those people are mostly looking for and mostly consuming on a day-to-day basis. If you pull up certain people that are looking at a lot of political stuff and a lot of political strife, you're going to find that that's their algorithm. If you look at mine, like she looked at yesterday, it's like chihuahuas and watches, because she looked at a bunch of chihuahuas and I like watches. But the point is as somebody who engages on these platforms, I understand the algorithm's not bad. The algorithm is just a reflection of what you as the individual are looking for regularly.
But don't you think that that's life too? Your life algorithm is a reflection.
Meaning the platforms are good at serving you what they think you want to see. So if it's negativity or arguments or stuff that makes you upset, it's going to. So I think the point I make is with our children, I'm going to be able to articulate and explain to them, if you look for this kind of thing, it's going to give you more of that thing. But for the average person that doesn't understand, why am I seeing all of this negative stuff online? It's because you are constantly engaging with that.
Well, I have two things to say about that. First of all, has to do with the society, and everything that you just described about our individual algorithms speaks to the fact that we've lost a sense of the commons. It's not a good thing that you're over here with your algorithms and you're over here with your algorithms and you're over here with your algorithms, even politically, and your algorithms say something completely different than my algorithms say. So that's not good news. It's not good news. You know, I thought a lot about when the Oprah show was on and Jon Stewart was on every night. And it was almost like every day at 3:00, we had a town hall on human decency. Most of her shows were about something that had to do with human decency. And that night, millions of people were gathered for Jon Stewart. It was a humorous, but a really also intelligent take on the news. When I was young, we had major figures like Walter Cronkite. So the fact that everybody's algorithm is taking them to a separate place, I think is part of what's a problem, especially since everybody's so addicted to their tablet that even when we're not online, we're online.
It's
right?
also the best way to reinforce your own bias.
Exactly. Absolutely, as we know. Now, secondly, I hate to tell you guys, right now, you're totally in control about what your little children are exposed to. Those days will end. That's part of the art of parenting, almost the grief of parenting. They're going to be, it's not just what you tell them, because there'll be a point where they're with their friends. And as you know, some of the addictive things about that, where you would say to them, be positive, but their friends say, hey, look at this. And it might be something that you think is more negative, but is getting their attention. So it becomes very multi-layered with parenting. If I would give any advice as a mother, I think the most important thing, because this is part of what used to happen in the old days and doesn't always happen anymore, make friends with their friends' parents.
Yeah.
It's so important.
So
there's a real parental field and everybody knows and everybody can report back, and also for the kids to know. I talked to Dylan's mom, and that's not what Dylan told her. You know, that's a little bit even later, but it is such a powerful, powerful tool that the kids are growing up in a community. And it's not only the sense of community, experience of community, but for you guys to have a real sense of what's going on.
I am wondering, you worked with Wayne Dyer and Louise Hay. All three of you are incredible powerhouses. What are the things that you all picked up from each other?
I don't think we thought in terms of picking up from each other. We knew that we were all doing the same kind of work. I think we enjoyed each other.
So when you
we
guys
didn't think in terms of,
I guess when you had conversations when there was no cameras or when there was no books, what was that like? The three of you. I mean, I just can imagine the energy in the room.
I have to be careful what I say here also, because he was very cool and she was very cool. Same word, very different. He was just kind of cool. She was, but she softened when she got older. She really softened.
I noticed that in the content when I consume her younger, she does soften as she got older. And I would attribute it to, and you could tell me because you knew her, it's almost like she really forgave towards the end of her life.
I didn't know her well enough to be able to say where it came from, but I knew her well enough to see that it was happening and that it happened.
When you decided to write Return to Love, where did that come from?
Oh, that was an interesting thing. There was a man named Jerry Jampolsky, and he wrote the first book on the Course in Miracles that was a popular version of it. It was called...
Every mother had that in the 80s and 90s. They still have it.
Love is Letting Go of Fear, right? It was a book called Love is Letting Go of Fear. I used to lecture at that time, it would be in the 1980s. Yeah. And I would speak in LA on Saturday morning, LA on Sunday night, LA on Tuesday night, and then between Tuesday and Saturday, I'd go to some other city. So that week I went to San Francisco. This is your manifestation question. I'm having dinner with Jerry Jampolsky before my talk about A Course in Miracles in San Francisco on a Thursday night. He said, you ought to write a book. I said, well, other people have told me that, but I don't feel pregnant with a book. He said, well, it's in those little cassette tapes. You guys probably have never seen cassette tapes. We'd had these little cassette tapes. He said, well, all the material is in your tapes. I said, well, I don't know how to get them from the tapes to the page. I know how to talk. I don't know how to write. He said, but it's all in there. He said, okay, let's agree right now. And he put his hand across the table. He said, let's agree right now. I don't know if he said, let's agree in consciousness, or he just said, let's agree. I probably just said, let's agree. There is someone out there who would know how to help you get your material from those tapes onto the page. That's Thursday night. Saturday morning, I'm in LA. There is a man who introduces himself at the end and says he's a literary agent. But then either he didn't call or I didn't get the call. I don't know. Never connected with that guy. Never either heard from him. I don't know. 1 week to the night, 7 days after the talk in San Francisco, I'm giving a talk in New York on the Course in Miracles. And there's a line of people who want to talk to me at the end. And there's one man at the end of the line. And I have a sense, I have destiny with him. And he came up and he introduced himself. He said, have you thought about writing a book? I said, well, other people have said that, but I don't feel pregnant with a book. He said, it's in those tapes. I said, I don't know how to get them from the tapes to the page. He said, I'm Al Lohman. I'm a literary agent. And I know how to help you do that.
When you saw what that book did and how many people resonated with it, were you blown away? Because this is before social media.
Well, I want to go back to the story I read about you. I didn't have bestseller in my consciousness.
Okay.
And my career niche didn't exist yet. So
Meaning
there was
that-
nothing to be ambitious for.
Got it.
I thought when this lady, Oprah Winfrey, called my house, I thought, well, she's so nice. She said, that's so nice. She said she wants me back. I'm like, clueless. And that idiot savant aspect of everything, exactly what you were saying. So yeah, I was thrilled. I remember I said to my boyfriend at the time, do you think it'll like sell enough that I won't be embarrassed? And he said, yeah. I mean, it won't be Iron John or anything, but.
So when Oprah Winfrey calls you and you start going on her show, what was that like for you?
She was so magnificent. And, there are no words for my gratitude to her. I do remember at one point she told me during a break, speak less, I can sell your book better than you can. She was magnificent. She opened the world of, that book would never have become what it did without. Yeah.
Were you always a child who was very intuitive and energetic? What was your childhood like to bring you to who you are?
I was loved. I had a very interesting father. We traveled all over the world. My father was a real magical kind of guy. He was really something. Really something.
What did he do?
He was an immigration lawyer. And he was kind of a cross between William Kunstler and Zorba the Greek. But you probably don't know who William Kunstler is. So it's like getting all this so interesting. So William Kunstler was a famous left-wing lawyer that had to do with the Chicago 7. So he was just a magical person. And my mother was a very good, I always feel when I say something like that now, I'm not giving my mother the credit for he couldn't have done all the things he did if she hadn't made it happen, it goes back to what you were saying before. I didn't realize how lucky I was because that was just life then. We all lived in Dick Van Dyke's house. And even then, of course, there were people who were not, but it was somehow more of an average American experience.
What was the eureka moment for you where you started applying all these practices to your life? Was it A Course in Miracles?
Well, I think we want to be careful with the idea of eureka moments because everybody has moments of clarity. I think you just start growing up. Now, when I was younger, I was always interested in anything that had to do with higher consciousness. It could be the I Ching, it could be tarot cards, it could be St. Teresa, it could be Alan Watts, it could be Ram Dass, it could be St. Thomas of Aquinas. If it was exoteric, it was esoteric. I just was always fascinated in anything like that. And in my generation, like in college, you read Ram Dass and Alan Watts, all this philosophical stuff in the morning, and then you went to Vietnam anti-war protests in the afternoon. At that time, it was the counterculture. It was everything. It was sexual, it was musical, it was cultural, it was relational, and it was political. It wasn't, people didn't have their lanes. It was just a sense of newness. So for me, the part of it that was most fascinating was the philosophical and the religious ideas, but I didn't know how to apply them to my life in any meaningful way. I just couldn't, they were abstractions to me that I didn't seem to really help with my love life or my body or whatever. So when I was in my mid-20s living here in New York City, I picked up a book on a coffee table called A Course in Miracles. Now, the Course doesn't claim to have any monopoly on truth. I think there's one truth spoken many different ways, secular, religious, spiritual. So the Course doesn't aim at a monopoly on truth. But for me, it was the key, I get how to practice it. Because before that, I hadn't realized it doesn't mean anything unless you're loving the person in front of you. It doesn't mean anything unless you're thinking with love and forgiveness. So none of the other stuff's going to work. And then that just opened up a world of possibilities.
Have you found after all your practices that to still be the foundation? You have to love yourself. You have to practice forgiveness. Are those still the pillars?
Well, this business you just said, love yourself. I do remind you that Jesus didn't come to earth to say, love yourself. He said, love one another. So yes, we have to have healthy self-esteem. We have to have healthy self-care. But, some of this love yourself craze, it's like, I'm concerned with some of it these days. I think some of what people call self-care, in my day, we called selfishness. Self-care, yes, your own healthy boundaries, taking care of food, sleep, exercise, and so forth. But living for yourself is not the key here. Living for others is where you find yourself. There's a line in the Course in Miracles where it says, do not look to yourself to find yourself, for that is not where you are.
It's funny, we were with Bill Maher of all people recently, and I was telling him while we were doing the show together that in a weird way, Lauren and I were on the cusp of one of the last generations to grow up going through school and college, which are formidable years, without smartphones and without technology.
Right.
So in a strange way, even though we're younger in age to the generations beneath us, we maybe relate more to the generations above us because we were like one of the last generations to grow up without this kind of technology.
Right.
And one of the things we do on this show is we have people from all walks of life and all different opinions and political spectrums.
Cool.
And as you can imagine, especially this day and age, we will catch flack for doing that. Like I just read a comment earlier and they said, oh, this is a safe space for this kind of political thought, or this is, and what I didn't respond, but what I wanted to respond was, no, this is a safe space for diversity of opinion.
Thank you. And this is so huge today. People have become so siloed. We've got to come out of our silos on every level. Your ethnicity, your religion, your sex, your sexuality, your politics. Enough with only talking to people that will agree with you. Oh, and there's this smug...
It's a fragility because you're scared to have
absolutely fragility. And it creates a smug self-righteousness on both sides of the political aisle.
Well, the easiest way,
so right.
If you believe you're on the righteous side, it's the easiest way to disregard the facts around you. Meaning, if I feel like I'm doing the quote-unquote right thing, and I'm not picking any political side, but if I just feel I'm doing the right thing, then I'm able to negate and disregard a lot of facts and opinions around me because I'm on the right side. Does that make sense?
Right. And that's self-righteousness. There's a difference between righteousness and self-righteousness. First of all, no one has a monopoly on the truth. If you think you don't have to learn anything, then you're really ignorant of what life is about. And people don't owe it to you to agree with you. I see this so much. I was at a dinner the other night, and my politics are more left, and these people, their politics were more right. And it was a really fun dinner party, and everybody was yelling and screaming, but in a really good way. Yep. And it was really actually a wonderful party. Everybody was having a good time at the table. And then at one point, one of the men said, well, which one is right? I said, we're both right. We're both right, and this country doesn't belong to it belongs to all of us, and we all get to be right. You know, Eisenhower said, the American mind at its best is both liberal and conservative. There are high-minded conservative principles. There are high-minded liberal principles.
How come more people don't understand that you can have two ideas at the same time and two thoughts that are opposing sometimes?
What you're saying, you know, we have to rethink everything.
Agreed.
Everything. We're rethinking politics. We're rethinking business. We're rethinking medicine. We're rethinking food. We're rethinking science. We're rethinking education. We're rethinking, everything. Rethinking religion and spirituality. And there's an evolutionary leap that we need to take, which has to do with the discomfort of knowing that sometimes there are juxtaposing views, and we have to hold all of them with love and compassion.
We've done this show for close to a decade. Imagine the audience that would exist and how boring the show would be if all we talked about was some thought pattern that leaned a specific way all the time, over and over and over. And for me, I'm like, how do you actually then get an informed view of the world?
That's wrong. That's what's wrong with the world today.
Mm-hmm.
That is what's wrong. And that's why, like I said, we used to have a Walter Cronkite. You now have Fox, which is not in all cases, but in most cases, sort of the mouthpiece for the Republican Party.
Sure.
You have MSNBC, which is most cases mouthpiece for the Democratic Party, and CNN leaning that way. That's kind of like dangerous.
Well, it's interesting doing this type of work where we've done it for a long time, but I would say in the last few years, definitely COVID and since, there is this like pushback and this aggression if you even have somebody on that leans a specific political way. Like it's not even what did they say or what was the idea discussed. It's I can't believe this person would be on this platform.
It's so horrifying unless they are a genuine hater.
Sure.
And I'm assuming we're not talking about genuine, because there are some serious haters out there. But somebody who just doesn't see it your way or is bringing up a different view, it's terrible. This is what cancel culture is. These days, it's not only do you have to agree with me, you have to say it the way I say it. You have to use the words and the phrases the way I don't. And if you don't, you need to shut up.
I think
you need to shut up.
You look at it like what you just said is like the dinner party. I don't want to go to a dinner party where everyone agrees with me. That sounds like a real boring dinner party. I want dinner parties that have eclectic conversations and color and depth and other opinions. I don't understand this thing where we have to all consume the content that we agree with.
Well, it's interesting because the night before the dinner party that I described, that was fun, even though I think I was the only lefty there, but it was fun actually. The night before, I was with people who I think had the same political views as I. I was probably more left than they were. But the problem was Americans are losing our capacity for critical thought.
Yes.
And we're not feeling permission. And that's what I found at the other dinner party. People weren't feeling, and I reminded a few people, like, maybe we should be thinking about this. Maybe we should be thinking about that. Maybe we should. And then it was almost like somebody needed to give permission to the table. And these were all intelligent people, high achieving people, but everybody's afraid to talk today. And also, it's not just, in some situations, not afraid to talk, but in way too many cases, saying what my political silo says I'm supposed to feel about this.
Right. It's like almost you've been robotically programmed.
And if you suggest anything that might be different, yeah, we got to break free. Well, and the only way we can break free is in our own minds. Read books. We have to go back to reading books.
Well, that's the hard, I personally love to read a lot of history.
Me too.
Right. That's like my favorite thing. And
you guys will have to exchange books. I can't wait to.
Do you read American history much?
I do. Yeah.
Doris Kearns Goodwin?
Yeah, I love it.
So did you read her
Team
new
of
one?
Rivals and Leadership.
Yes, and her last one is called An Unfinished Love Story.
I've not read that one yet.
Oh my God. And the one on Franklin and Eleanor Roosevelt, A No Ordinary Time.
I've read Team of Rivals and Leadership, but I have not read those two, but I'm aware of them.
Oh, you gotta
No,
read them. She's recommending
they'll
them.
blow your mind.
But I guess like somebody, again, like if you read history, you start to realize like how fragile society actually can be
Our
when
democracy.
people start to think this way, where they can't tolerate different ideas. And it's not to be an alarmist, but you have to be able to hold opposing views and ideas. Like I run companies, and imagine if I ran a company where the only thing we did were my ideas and I never listened to anyone else about their ideas.
You
Like,
wouldn't have a successful company.
Of course not.
And also, there's the issue of there are at least 11 states in the United States that do not require even half a year of American history, American government, or American civics. A lot of it is just pure ignorance of where this country came from. And what you have, there are these two major categories in the United States that I notice that both scare me in a way. Scare me is to concern me.
Sure.
People who only want to talk about what America has done right, and they have no listening, and we cannot talk about the shadows, and we cannot talk about any of the we weren't always the good guys, no listening for that. But then there's another group equally unbalanced. They only want to talk about what America has done wrong. They have no listening for anything we've ever done right, no listening for the historical realities that are in fact a lot to be proud of and to build on, and even think it's awful to even say that. And I just think I think so many are yearning. That's what I saw when I ran for president. The people are not the problem. I mean, it's what's going on in the system, in the political system, in the media system, and online. But when I would actually be talking to audiences so many times, people on the right, people on the left, people who voted for Trump, people who voted for Bernie, who I think are craving, could we have a deeper conversation now about what's really happening and about our profound responsibility at this time in history, and not think only in terms of who's Democrat, who's Republican, who's for Jill, who's for Cornell, what do you think about Bobby? What do you, who's liberal, who's conservative, who's progressive? We just have to have an American conversation.
One of the main signs of intelligence is flexibility of the mind.
Yes.
And I think we've lost the flexibility of the mind. You just mentioned that you ran for president, which is huge undertaking.
Yeah.
Why did you decide to do that, and what was that like?
Well, I think a lot of why I wanted to do it is much like the conversation that we've been having here. So I think that a qualified president today, what I think of as qualified for the job, is someone who has the professional skill to discern what is really going on in this country and can articulate that to the American people. And that will mean a lot of looking in the mirror. No system can go forward without cleaning up its past. No person, no system can go forward without taking a deep look at itself. And I feel that much like you and I were talking already about, everything's about rethinking. The 21st century is not the same mindset as the 20th century. The 20th century mindset, different from the 19th. The 20th was a very mechanistic Newtonian paradigm. The world is a big machine, and we're just going to change the world by tweaking the pieces of the machine. The 21st century, and you see this in Gen Z, because they're not 20th century people, far more holistic, far more integrative. I'll have kids in college, they ask a question about antidepressants, and the next question is about drone warfare and what's happening in Syria. And they don't see anything odd about that. They know you can't stay in these lanes. Life is about an integrative approach. It's about what's happening on the inside as well as the outside. It's about preventative measures as well as treating symptoms. So our political system, in addition to being so profoundly corrupt, is the whole paradigm of it is based in what you and I would think of as old think. It's not an adequate modality of thought to take us forward into a sustainable future. And I thought that I could add that, and I felt that people listening were ready for that. That was not where the problem was.
You guys know we are always on the lookout for ways to strengthen our immune system, especially with small kids. Parents out there can relate. Our gut health, improve our fitness, our metabolism, enhance our skin, nails, hair, all of it. Well, this is why we love talking about Armor Colostrum. We love Armor Colostrum so much that we've had the founder on this show to talk about all of the amazing benefits that Armor Colostrum provides. For those of you that are unfamiliar, Armor Colostrum is a patent-pending premium bovine colostrum concentrate that leverages proprietary cold chain biopotent pasteurization technology to preserve colostrum's 400 plus bioactive nutrients in their purest, most bioavailable form, and ensures composition that is uniquely optimized for human health. Lauren and I have been taking Armor Colostrum ever since we had the founder on this show. The way we take it is we put a scoop in water every single morning when we wake up. Sometimes we like to put it under the tongue and make sure we get a ton of absorption. With 400 plus functional nutrients, Armor harnesses the power of humans' original bioactive food, its hosts of protective antibodies, whole food prebiotics, strengthening peptides, free amino acids, trace minerals, tissue growth factors, antioxidants, and adaptogens, and other supportive compounds act as the body's source code, architecting its cellular regeneration and repair and ensuring youthful, optimal functioning throughout the lifespan. So check it out. We've worked out a brand new special offer for our audience. Receive 30% off your first subscription order. Go to tryarmor.com/skinny or enter skinny to get 30% off your first subscription order. That's tryarmra.com/skinny. Quick break to talk about Haya. Typical children's vitamins are basically candy in disguise, filled with 2 teaspoons of sugar, unhealthy chemicals, and other gummy junk growing kids should never eat. That's why Haya was created, the pediatrician-approved superpowered chewable vitamin. While most children's vitamins are filled with 5 grams of sugar and can contribute to a variety of health issues, Haya is made with 0 sugar and 0 gummy junk, yet it tastes great and is perfect for picky eaters. Both of our children, every morning they come and they say pink, green, or yellow. This is the color of the Haya vitamins. It's become a whole routine. What I love about this is we've made taking supplements and vitamins in our house inclusive with the children. They feel like when we take ours, they take theirs. And I just love the fact that they're taking an interest in health and wellness this early. And we talk about how they're getting essential vitamins and minerals in their bodies, including vitamin D, B12, C, zinc, folate, and many others to help support immunity, energy, brain function, mood, concentration, teeth and bone growth, and more. Everything young children need. It's non-GMO, vegan, dairy-free, allergy-free, gelatin-free, nut-free, and everything else you can imagine free. And now the same multivitamin that more than 1 million kids and parents love are now available in Barbie Pink with a limited edition Barbie unboxing experience, including Barbie bottle and Barbie stickers. Of course, we have worked out a special deal with Haya for their best-selling children's vitamin. Receive 50% off your first order. To claim this deal, you must go to hayahealth.com/skinny. This deal is not available on their regular website. Go to HIYAHEALTH.com/skinny and get your kids the full body nourishment they need to grow into healthy adults.
I am someone that would not dare take my makeup off without a cleansing balm. I love to use a cleansing balm to melt off my makeup. I like something that's buttery and calming. It's tough on makeup, but it's really gentle on your skin. I just feel like a wipe pulls the face down and it's filled with chemicals. The cleansing balm that I always use is by Cora Organics. I love Miranda Kerr. She's been on the show. We have some fun things planned for you guys. And we both have a very similar ethos when it comes to skincare. She likes things that are made with real ingredients, so she was very specific about the cleansing balm that she created. It has pineapple enzymes in it and a skin-soothing microalgae, and everything is working to clarify and balance your skin. There's also jojoba oil in it, which is amazing to break down impurities and to help your makeup melt off the skin. I like to use my cleansing balm in the shower. I keep it in the shower. So when I get in, I'll do like a cold shower for 2 minutes because I like to wash my face with cold water. And then I'll just let Cora Organics cleansing balm melt off my makeup. It's amazing. It's good for facial massage and facial manipulation. And it just like grips the skin in the best way without pulling on it. They also have a cult following for delivering powerful results better than non-organic skin favorites. Visit CoraOrganics.com and use code SKINNY at checkout for 20% off your first purchase. That's KoraOrganics.com. Use code SKINNY for 20% off your first order. And definitely grab the calming cleansing balm.
I think the most frustrating thing to me personally, and I'll make this, this is a selfish response. I've always been a kind of out of the box, kind of do my own thing, beat at the tune of my own drum type of person, right? I think like a lot of entrepreneurs are like that, right? At school, I was always just kind of like moseying along. And I hate the idea that there's a group of people that I have to side with and decide to think like just because they have maybe one idea I agree with and another group that has I need to be able to, in every area of my life, whether it's parenting or health or wellness or politics or finance, I need to be able to take a lot of information in and then disseminate all of that and make my own decision. And I think we're living in dangerous times where it's like, pick a side, choose. And I'm like, well, there's a lot of valid ideas from a lot of these groups, but there's a lot of ideas I disagree. And I think that this idea that I have to pick and choose based on one moral high ground or another is really hard for a lot of people to come to terms with, because there's a lot of things that I agree with on one side and I disagree with on another. And I think like, it's just not a realistic, if you applied that to any other parenting, for example, there's only one way to parent. You either do this way or this way, or health. It just doesn't, that's not how life works.
Well, if we had a parliamentary system, it would be easier. There would be a plethora of views and they would all have a chance to be platformed. We have not only a two-party system, but we have something really terrible that's happened in the last few decades. If you look in our past, third-party voices were very important. Abolition emerged from the Abolitionist Party. Mm-hmm. Women's suffrage emerged from the Women's Suffrage Party. Social Security came from the Socialist Party. Civil rights came from the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. The parties didn't take up all the power and say it's only them or us, especially given the fact that what everybody's seeing now also is, actually, you're not as different as you claim to be because you're both funded by the same guys. So that's what people are realizing. This whole left versus right canard is just that. The real dichotomy in America is not between left and right. It's between the powerful and the powerless, between those who have capital and ever greater access to more capital versus those who don't. And people are seeing that on the left and the right. But on both the left and the right, that voice is having a hard time being heard because of the corporate dominance of both parties. So the conundrum, the frustration that you're articulating, who's not? No, I don't know one person who's happy about this election. I mean, I guess some people are, but there's a general sense of something's really wrong that it came to this. Something's really wrong. So it's what we do with this upset, because if we're not careful, we'll just spiral down. Nihilism, cynicism, anger. That's very dangerous. We have to take that. And I'm telling you, what you just described is the way the American mind is supposed to operate. Mm-hmm. You're very American in the way you talk. Actually, you are what the American mind is known for. It's a rugged individualism, but I want to know, it's not a rugged narcissism. It's a rugged individualism. Don't tell me how to think, and I'm going to go out and do what I want to do.
Well, it's hard. I guess like the fun. It's like this is how I've been my entire life,
yeah.
And so now it's like, don't be that way anymore. I think like a lot of people feel that frustration.
Absolutely, on the left and the right.
Well, and also left and right. Like I remember as a kid, I was probably more in terms of like the way I think social. Like the conservative party at the time, or I guess the right, was more oppressive in terms of speech and ideas and free thinking and kind of pushing more kind of progressive ideas. And now you can't tell who, like now, like that's another thing we talked about with Bill Maher. It's like, who even knows what party means what anymore? It's all over the place.
And also, like I said, it's the real dangerous ways in which they're similar, because they are both enablers of the matrix of corporate powers, insurance companies, pharmaceutical companies, big food companies, big chemical companies, big agricultural companies, gun manufacturers, big oil and defense contractors. That matrix of corporate powers, the organizing principle of American society, has shifted away from humanitarian and democratic principles to the idea that short-term profits for these huge corporate behemoths should be our bottom line. And both parties foster it, and both parties are adamant that no one will have too much of a voice here who goes against that.
When you were running for president, I'm sure your nervous system was not the same as if you were not running for president. What were the things and the tools that you used throughout your day to sort of center yourself?
Centering myself To be a candidate, the kind of candidate that I was, is to be under constant assault. You wake up every morning and it's like the internet alone, you're walking into a dark alley and you're being beaten up. Lies, smears, character assassination, even infiltration of your campaign. When you run for president, well, this wasn't true in the 2020, but it was true in 2024. The FBI calls you and says, please come down to the office. We want to give you a briefing. And this is the same briefing we'll give to all of the candidates. So I assume all the candidates got it. And it was telling you what to expect and saying these things are not if, it's only a matter of when. You should expect it. And this is what it is. This will happen, this will happen, this will happen, this will happen. And then they say, the three main suspects are Russia, China, or Iran. Well, all those things happen. And I don't think it was anything having to do with Russia or China or Iran. It has to do with the forces, the political media industrial complex here in the United States. We're in trouble. There's some very serious
What do you mean
elements
things
of
that
corruption.
happen? Like the people call, like what
They
you
even
call,
infiltrate your campaigns.
Well,
There are people inside there to sabotage you.
oh my God.
we have a group of friends that I would say are not even political that have been on this show. One of them's name's Callie Means, and they're really loud right now about the problems in the food industry and the food that's put ingredients for our children. And there's this simple clip where they show the ingredients that are in Fruit Loops in Canada versus Fruit Loops. I think it's Fruit Loops cereal.
The famous thing about the ketchup bottle.
And all just the laundry list of items that are in this country compared to other. And I think what they're saying is, well, can't we just create a system where the things that are outlawed and deemed to be unsafe in other countries are the same here? And even they become political targets, where it's like, this is a food conversation. This is a health conversation.
In 2020, on the debate stage, Democratic debate stage, I mentioned that. I was talking about how we have the highest level of chronic disease of any advanced democracy. And I said to deal with that. And I talked about the fact we have a sickness care system rather than a health care system. And I said, and of course, to deal with that, you have to deal with your food policies, your chemical policies. And that at that point, Chuck Todd or whoever it was cut me off. And in my food platform, absolutely, there are GMOs, there are carcinogens that are allowed in the United States that are not allowed in other countries that do not have these high chronic levels of disease. But it's what I said to you before. These entities, we have 5 major food companies. I don't know if you've ever had Mark Hyman on your show.
Yeah,
Mark
sure.
talks
Love
about
Mark.
this a lot. We have 5 major food companies. And the money that is given by these huge behemoths. So we have the Food and Drug Administration, okay? This is an example. When I was a kid, an agent from the Food and Drug Administration could walk into a grocery store and if it's known carcinogen, say, take it off the shelves. They had been completely dejuiced. And I'm sorry, that's the Republicans, not the Democrats, even though now it's the Republicans with Bobby Kennedy going over. So you're right. It's all, well, who's who? But it's called corporate capture. And so the big food, just like big oil, just like defense contractors, military industrial complex, just like big insurance companies, just like pharmaceutical companies, just like gun manufacturers, they have captured our government. They have captured these federal agencies. They have captured our Congress and turned it into a system of legalized bribery. And what I've come to know is that they've captured our political parties. The American people, the only way to override this is for us to wake up. And just like you're talking, and we're gonna listen to people, and we're not gonna go along with anybody except what our own heart says. And on the primary level, it cannot just be in the general elections.
Yeah, I think it's very dangerous to shut out other voices that are trying to sound alarms. If it's a wrong alarm bell, and you can at least listen and say, okay, like that's wrong, that's a kooky idea, that's crazy. But the idea that you just don't listen because of political affiliation, it creates a blind spot, I think, not only for the country, but for individuals, because you can't disseminate all the information.
But it's deeper than, it only appears to be your political affiliation. It's not about whether the left or the right would like you. It's whether big food would like you. Really it's that corporate piece. Our government has been captured by corporate power. That is really what we're talking about here. And ever since the Citizens United case, their power to control our government is so great. If some congressman or senator doesn't vote with them on deregulating food, because that's all you're talking about here, They deregulated, this orgy of deregulation. There used to be these regulations. You couldn't have this proven carcinogen. I remember a few years ago, there was just this awful, I could never pronounce it. It's an element in a pesticide that was known,
glyphosate,
whatever that, yeah, and it was known to harm a child's brain. What is the ethics of why would they even want to?
It's still on almonds, and you still have to check your almond milk for that.
But you know, I'll tell you how this, like, speaking as a media executive, right? Like, so this is my kind of side gig doing this, but my main gig is I run a large media company. And I think a lot of people think it's the media, but what happens is you will have these entities that you're talking about come with huge dollars, and they will start to deploy them across media entities. And those dollars start to become one of the biggest line items of income on those companies.
Absolutely.
And then what happens is those companies start to put some pressure saying, hey, we really need this kind of messaging, or stay away from that. And not even crazy, just please don't talk about this, or maybe talk more about this.
Absolutely.
And the way that these companies can respond is they either say yes and they keep those dollars and more, or they say no and those budgets get pulled, and all of a sudden people's jobs are lost and the companies go. So it's this control.
It's every sector of our society.
People don't think that that's happening, though. And I'm like, I'm telling you as a media person, that's what happens.
I understand that. Of course I understand that. People are afraid that their clicks, their brand, everything's brand protection. Yeah, I'm not going to talk about that. I'm not going to talk about that. The producers won't like it. They won't sell the ad. Yeah, it has infected every corner of our society.
The Skinny Confidential, Him and Her podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. I'd like to thank our producer, Carson, who sits with me as I chug through all of these podcasts day in and day out. He makes sure that I don't go off the rails, make sure that we get episodes out to you guys on time. And honestly, he puts up with a lot between Lauren and I. And, you know, I wanted to say that because this month is all about gratitude. And along with the person I just shouted out, there's another person we don't get to thank enough, and that is ourselves. It's sometimes hard to remind ourselves that we are trying our best to make sense of everything in this crazy world, and that isn't easy. This is why we love BetterHelp so much. BetterHelp makes therapy accessible to anyone at any time from the comfort of their own home, their office, on whatever digital device they choose to do therapy from. BetterHelp has been a longtime partner of the Skinny Confidential, and we have had a first row seat to high performers who come on the show and talk about how therapy has absolutely changed their life. It's become a huge tool in their toolbox. So if you've been thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. I love this service so much. I love that you don't have to go to a doctor's office and wait in a waiting room. I love that you can do it confidently from your own home, on your own device. And I love that you can switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. So let the gratitude flow with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/skinny today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/skinny.
I first tried Prolon when I was going to Cabo. I wanted something that could just like reset my system. I was going to be in a bikini and I wanted to feel great about it. So I went and bought their fasting program. And it was amazing. So it's not a diet, it's a science, and it's science based on Nobel Prize-winning discoveries in medicine. Everything is super easy. So it's a 5-day program. You get snacks, soups, and beverages all designed, and this is the crazy part, to keep your body in a fasting state. So your body thinks it's fasting, but you're still getting food. It's truly unlike anything I've ever experienced. I've never done anything like it. I felt satisfied the whole time, and I can tell you, I felt very confident in my bikini when I got to Cabo. I liked it so much that I actually did it the next time I went to Cabo. I showed it on my Instagram story. If you guys saw it, it was just like a good clean out. If you're looking for just a wake up call to get serious about your health and you want to try fasting, but you don't want to be overwhelmed about it, I would definitely try Prolon. Everything is researched and developed for decades at the University of Southern California of Longevity Institute. Everything is backed by leading U.S. medical centers. Right now, Prolon is offering the Him and Her show listeners a 15% off their 5-day nutrition program. Go to prolonlife.com/skinny. That's PROLON
prolonlife.com/skinny for this special offer. That's prolonlife.com/skinny.
We talk a lot about morning routines and efficiency on this show. This is why I'm so excited to once again be talking about AG1. AG1 helps you build a healthy morning routine. In just 60 seconds, you can get your daily dose of vitamins, minerals, pre and probiotics, adaptogens, and more. And that's why I've been drinking AG1 for close to 10 years now. I think it's been 8 exactly, but who cares? Just call it 10. What I love about AG1 is it's like a daily self-care for me. I know that I'm doing at least one good thing for my body every day when I start my day with AG1. It gives my body the vitamins, minerals, and more that it needs. I pour a huge glass of water and throw a heaping scoop of AG1, and then I drink it down. It just packs such a punch. I've said for many years on this show, if I could only buy one supplement that packs a huge bang for the buck, it would be AG1, and that's because it packs so many essentials into one simple scoop of green powder that you can drink with water first thing in the morning. So if you're looking to get your gut health under control, which will also boost your immune function and just make you feel better overall, this is a great product to try. AG1 is made with bioavailable ingredients that actually work with your body, and AG1's powder form makes it easy for your body to digest and access the nutrient-dense ingredients in the formula. So start with AG1 and notice the difference for yourself. It's a great first step to investing in your health, and that's why they've been a proud partner of ours for so long. Try AG1 and get a free bottle of vitamin D3K2 and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase at drinkag1.com/skinny. That's a $48 value for free if you go to drinkag1.com/skinny. Check it out.
What are the things that you think this generation need to look at in the return to love? Like, if you look back at what you wrote, what are the things that you would want to infuse in this upcoming generation?
Well, there's an issue in nonviolence political philosophy, the idea that everything you do is infused with the energy with which you do it. And as Gandhi said, the end is inherent in the means. So the idea here is that everything that you and I have been talking about, we will not be able to endure or transform unless we do the things you and I are talking about.
Right.
In other words, unless we become the people, there are characterological shifts that are going to be necessary in order for us to pull this off. The characterological shift, which will enable us to say, F you, if you don't like it, I'm going to talk about it on my show. Right? The characterological, I'm going to run for office because somebody needs to say this, and to endure it, and to endure. So many people are so upset by the whole thing, but we have to, if you meditate, pray, reflect, mindfulness, yoga, prepare your nervous system. These are very turbulent times. Know that it's happening. Prepare your nervous system. Dedicate your life to being part of the healing. Then you will bring into your life more and more people who share that consciousness. So there will be an exponential growth in the amount of good you can do. So it's a big both and. Martin Luther King said that in order to create the beloved community, we need external changes in our circumstances and internal shifts in our souls. So like my last book was about Jesus, for goodness sake. It's as much about the what's happening on the inside as what's happening on the outside. So from Return to Love, the answer to your question is, who have I not forgiven? How did, at the end of the day, Stevie Wonder used to have a song a long time ago, in Songs in the Key of Life. He said, God is the only free psychiatrist known throughout the world for every boy and girl. Ask yourself at the end of the day, how'd I do? Did I show up? Was I there to give something, or was I there to get something? Was I as kind, or was I as gracious? Did I make other people feel that they were great? Do I owe anyone an apology? Do I need to atone for anything? Your greatest product is yourself.
So doing a conscious effort to take a self-inventory every single night and waking up in the morning and sort of having gratitude, what are the meditations that you do? I would love to know what your specific practice looks like right now.
Well, I'm a student of A Course in Miracles. Once again, the Course doesn't claim a monopoly on truth. It's one of truth is one spoken in many different ways. I'm a student of the Course in Miracles, and it has 365 days worth of lessons. And the first half of the year is deconstructing the thought system based on fear that dominates this world. And the second half of the year is constructing a thought system based on love. So the world, we are living in this world today, particularly for all the reasons we've talked about, we instinctively, we're like mentally trained, go for the judgment, go for the attack, go for the defense, so that it feels almost unnatural to go for the love.
What do you do when you meditate? Do you sit in silence or do you listen to the Course?
Well, the Course in Miracles, the lessons, you actually say the lesson, you read it, and then you sit in silence for at least 10 minutes.
And do you like to meditate throughout the day, or is it a morning or night?
Well, in the Course in Miracles, some of them say, try to do this, try to remember this sentence every 5 minutes. So I've never been totally perfect on all that. Sometimes it'll say 3 to 4 times a day for 15 minutes if you can. I also do transcendental meditation, which is the 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes in the afternoon. They say 10 minutes, you'll keep up with the stress. 20 minutes, you'll get ahead of the stress.
Did you train for transcendental meditation?
When I lived in Austin in the 1970s.
Wow, you were ahead of the time, the 1970s.
Well, see, y'all think that we weren't doing this stuff.
Oh my God.
Everybody, it's like
That's
so
crazy.
much is going on now that people think is new. It's like,
I was with a buddy this
you
morning.
weren't there then, huh?
And he said, what's new is old and what's old is new.
Yeah.
It's like
Really,
it's
they
coming
say,
back.
oh, you should go
If
down.
you could infuse Michael and I, everyone in here, our audience, with one thing, if you could give us maybe a quote, something that we could just feel good about before you go, what would it be?
Let's all try to be gentler. Let's all try to be kinder. Let's all try to give other people the benefit of the doubt. Let's all be more forgiving. Let's all try to have some love here because we need miracles. We're on an unsustainable path. The Secretary General of the United Nations says it. And we need to pull off something so historic, and we will not be able to do it from a place of hate. We just won't. And we won't be able to do it from a place of separation. We'll only be able to do it from a much more evolved level of appreciation of one another, and love for one another, love for each other's kids. And love is to fear what light is to darkness. Everybody's scared these days. But you get rid of the darkness by turning on the light, and we're going to get rid of the fear by turning on the love. And it's going to make us, among other things, the powerful people we need to be to change all the things that we've been talking about here and make this world a better place for our children.
You are iconic. I am so excited that we had you on the show. What a show.
Thank you,
Where can
Marianne.
everyone follow you, find your content, your books, everything?
Thank you. At Marianne.com. That shows how old I am,
Is
right?
that
I got Marianne.com.
Yep. And go follow your Instagram too, right? Your
Oh, yeah.
Thank you so
Facebook.
much
Thank
for
you so much
coming
for doing
on.
this.
Thank you so much, both of you.